policies because we put these sanctions on Russia, which we thought, oh, this is going to actually do something to deter them from going to invade Ukraine. And it's only probably exacerbated it because it's actually raised the price of oil. So it enriches Putin and also begins to tear away at the petrodollar, which is a whole nother conversation that maybe we'll get into with our special guest today. But there was a presser earlier today in Bismarck. There's a new organization called American Experiment in North Dakota. They've got them over in Minnesota, but it's new here in North Dakota as well. And they were talking about sort of energy leadership, how American energy production could actually make the world a safer place. What a novel idea. One of the people at the presser today and spoke, the great Lieutenant Governor of the great state of North Dakota, Brent Sanford, joins us now. Lieutenant Governor, welcome to the show. It's great to have you, sir.
Thank you for the invite, Chris. It was a really special press conference. It was great being there with Commissioner Julie Fedorchik, who is an absolute expert on what's happening to our grid, and Ron Ness from the Petroleum Council, and Isaac Orr from American Experiment, and he was at the Lignite Council annual meeting and spoke on a panel, or spoke as a speaker before the panel that I was on. So I got to listen to his words at the Lignite Council meeting, and tell you what, American Experiment North Dakota are right on the money on what's happening with inflation, with geopolitics, and yeah, absolutely. This Russian war in Ukraine is enriching Putin and Russia by driving the cost of price of natural gas up 2 or 3 times from what it used to be. They're still selling oil and gas in the world market. But the main thing is the commodity price has gone through the roof because of the concern in supply. And so this report talks a lot about what Europe has done to themselves. And as Isaac said, it not being responsible for their own energy security, relying entirely on Russia for their natural gas to fill the side of the gap when their weather dependent new green energy sources and wind and solar are not able to produce. Then you have to have natural gas as the filler, right? And they get that all from Russia. And so here they are today with worried about not being able to keep receiving natural gas from the unfriendly actor that Russia represents. So they want more from us. We don't have enough because our administration is not allowing the Bakken, the Eagle Ford, Oklahoma, some of these areas to go back to where we were. California, Colorado, that goes without saying, are not producing oil where we used to. And so we're not able to pick up the slack for Europe. We are still the number one oil producing country, thanks to President Trump and his energy dominance policies that we took great advantage of. But we could do more if this administration would actually ask and look to the Bakken producers, the Permian producers, the Eagle Ford producers to actually do this for us. But anyway, the report is right on the money of what the geopolitical answers are to actually have us produce more energy in North Dakota, in America, sell more energy to California and New York instead of them having to import energy, and then us able to sell more energy to Europe. That would be the answer. Inflation would be reduced. Geopolitical strife would be reduced. And it seems easy, but as you know, Chris, it's not that easy for those on the left.
I want to, you said so much that I want to get to a couple items there, just in the fact about when you say, Chris, it's not easy because of those on the left, but it should be. But before we get to that, I mean, I was trying to find the presser online. I wasn't able to see it. So for those of us that couldn't be there, like, what's the single most important thing we should take away from that presser?
There's so many, but the single most important thing I would tell you is that the answer to what's happening in Europe is that they should be generating oil and gas from their own shale, but they're not. They're fracking bans. They prematurely shifted to green energy, weather dependent green energy, and didn't have they didn't preserve their base load power production. They're reducing nukes. They drastically shut down most of their coal generated power. They are not producing their own natural gas, and they're relying on other countries, to which if then all of a sudden you get into a war, it's not a very stable environment. So the geopolitical reality is Europe needs to be more energy independent, and the United States should take heed and not fall off the cliff like Europe has, and not be dependent on unfriendly nations for our energy supplies. And that's the direction that those on the green left seem to want to go. So we should actually be able to see into the crystal ball of what it would look like in Europe today. and in California and New York, frankly, if we were to stop producing energy prolifically like we do in America. So that's number one. But number two is we're already doing this to ourselves in America. Our grid, as Julie Fedorchik says every time you hear her talk, is the cushion is gone because we're prematurely shutting down coal plants and shifting to green, weather-dependent technologies like wind and solar before we're ready to replace those coal plants with resilient dispatchable power. So that's number two, is that we're already starting to do this to ourselves in America.
So let me ask you this, Lieutenant Governor. If you're just joining us, Lieutenant Governor of North Dakota, Brent Sanford's with us. Great press conference earlier today about just really American energy leadership and how North Dakota and the Bakken could lead in that arena. The one question I always ask people, Lieutenant Governor, and I don't, maybe it's because I want a certain answer, but I don't really seem to get it. But let me ask you this: why? Like you just said, hey, everybody in America can see what's going on in Europe. Everyone knows that oil and gas jobs are great jobs, they're high-paying jobs. I mean, why would the left want to destroy American energy?
Well, I really don't know why they want to, but they do want to. And you could see evidence of that after the Empower conference when Dakota Resource Council, Scott from Dakota Resource Council was interviewed. And he basically said they don't care that there's CO2 solutions on the horizon for fossil fuels industries and oil and gas and the coal industry, and also with ag, with ethanol going to CO2 capture. They really don't care because his quote was, it's incentivizing industries to continue on that we don't like.
Who said this? I'm sorry.
That was Dakota Resource Council. That was Scott Skopos from Dakota Resource Council. That's in the forum. But they really don't even care if there's CO2. If CO2 is supposed to be the real problem here in creating climate change from man-made CO2, then wouldn't they want to listen to some solutions to have less CO2? No, they really just want to get rid of the industry. So it goes back to the war on coal from the Obama administration, and really they're just saying anything goes except coal. You can't have coal. And so then you take care of all the concerns. They still don't want to have coal plants operating and coal mining going on.
So, Lieutenant Governor, how do I ask this? Is it purely politics? And here's what I mean. Has the coal industry and the oil and gas industry in the past traditionally given more money to Republican campaigns than Democrat campaigns? Like, I look at what the Democrats did to the NRA, right? Destroyed them, tied them up in legal issues. They couldn't give hardly any money to the Trump campaign for the race. I mean, is that what they're kind of doing, a back end around to destroy these industries so there's no more or not as much money given to Republican campaigns?
No, I think it's more into the if you listen to national talk show media like Hannity, etc., they're talking about the climate change cult and the green energy cult, and it's more of an ideology to get rid of fossil fuels and only use green renewable energy. And I would say that there are Democrats that were very supportive of the coal industry. Look at in our state that labor unions from Minnesota really helped with the Coal Creek permit transfer because they appreciate the person having a good, honest job every day, and the labor unions have a lot of employment in the utilities market. And rural electrics, most of them are deriving their power from coal plants to bring electricity to the rural areas. I mean, in a lot of these areas were co-ops, which were very heavily Democrat supporters in the past at different times. And so I don't think it's the first scenario you brought up. I don't believe it was too much support from only one party to the oil and coal industries. It seems to me it's more of the going to the extreme of I've been calling them the weather dependent technologies, but it's the green renewable dreams of having solar panels and wind, and the mythical beast of green hydrogen being the power source for everything. That's where they want to go, but there's no solutions for that yet. And a premature change from our grid and our transportation fuel to that method before anything else is ready is only going to provide more pain than what we have today with this generational inflation that could be solved with number one, quit printing money at the federal level. Number two, produce more energy so the cost of energy goes down, then the trucking and transportation, all the rest of the costs go down into the cost of our goods and services.
Lieutenant